Well, hello there, motherfuckers, and welcome to your Raw review. So I'm gonna forego the Extreme Rules review. After watching Noam Chomsky and Alicia Fox wrestling Rich Swan. Oh yeah, that's Rich, and Sasha Banks dancing around like a bunch of goofballs, like some mini Brodus Clays. I had just about enough of that shit. So I watched. If I'm gonna put something over on that pay per view, I'm gonna go with Cesaro and Sheamus, with the Hardys and the cage match. That was a good match with a good finish. Um, I like that team of Cesaro and Sheamus and the Hardys. Surprised they dropped the belt so fast. But that was probably the best match on the show. But I don't feel like making a whole review of it. I feel like I just would be bashing most of it, much like I'm going to do with this show. But there's more to talk about, at least on this show. I feel like there's more to talk about on Raw, at least in a pay per view, or it's just a series of matches. I'm just gonna say this match is good and that match is bad, and I'll get into it. I'll probably just end up ranting on fuckboy Balor anyway, and half the people will rage against me, half the people will laugh at it. So, but we'll do that here in this review instead. So, fuck boy Balor lost, but fat boy Samoa Joe actually ended up winning. And I'm not very excited. I'm going to get to it in this review. Samoa Joe, fat boy Joe, ended up choking out Heyman, but I'm not fully happy with this Lesnar Joe. I mean, it's interesting. I want to see the match. I will watch it, but it's not going to draw in any new fans. People need to realize that Joe is a guy that could have been a good prospect back in the day, but the thing is, the guy's never been in shape. Let's be perfectly honest. To me, I compare a guy like Joe to a guy like Trevor Murdoch. If people remember him, I've mentioned him in the past. Where I was like, they bring this guy onto the roster, and he's in very poor shape. I don't care what anybody says. Joe might be wide, he might be a big guy, but the guy he's flabby. He really is. He's not in shape. But this is, now this is acceptable because this is the roster that we have. When you've got guys like Sami Zayn beating Baron Corbin, and you have fuckboy Balor going over guys like Roman Reigns, and already a guy like Balor, we forget sometimes because he was only champion for one night. He was a world champion. So in this landscape, a Samoa Joe is perfectly acceptable, even though he's not in tip top condition. Back in the day, this would not be acceptable. It's probably the reason why he never made it onto the main roster in WWE. He stayed in developmental. And I talked about it in my Samoa Joe is overrated video. This guy was in an article in 2002. They talked about Joe, and they talked about, Samoans being great wrestlers. And the thing is, what people need to realize about Joe is he's not a part of, whatever that family is called, the Alpha family, whatever it is, the Roman Reigns, Snuka, Rock, uh, Samoan lineage. He's not a part of that lineage. And certain people have mentioned this in the past, and people will choose to overlook it. But why do they promote this guy so heavily? It's like certain people that feel that just because a wrestler is Canadian, he's automatically good. Just because Bret Hart was one of the most popular wrestlers of all time, just because he's Canadian, that means that every single person who's from Canada is automatically a good wrestler. I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. And people who believe that are out of their minds. You're not automatically good, as I said, just because you wrestle in Japan or you wrestle in Canada or you're from there. People automatically feel if a wrestler is Japanese or he's Canadian, he's automatically good. That's just not how it works. So Samoa Joe is not automatically good just because he's Samoan. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I haven't even gotten into the show yet, and I'm already ranting on Joe. So let's get to it. So Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt engage in a little promo, and it leads to a match, and Roman Reigns goes over Bray Wyatt. And, I'm going to have a problem with this, but not because of the reason that the Smarks have a problem with this. I see on PW Torch, a little bit of inside info. I never sit down and write each result out when I'm watching Raw or whatever show I happen to be reviewing. What I do is I look at the show, I concentrate on the show, I'm watching it to observe it, and or sometimes half paying attention, whatever it is. But I'll usually go to PW Torch and I'll write down the results using either Wade Keller or James Caldwell. I don't even know if Caldwell's there anymore. For a while, it was Caldwell for years and years, but now it looks like Keller is back doing the Raw reviews, the Raw report again. So I always have to look at the comments. I've done it for years of Wade Keller, and he always writes the most ridiculous things. And I see in the comments the same thing. Wade Keller now is complaining that the match is too long. He says it's 15 minutes too long. He says there's too many Superman punches. There's too many spears. Complain even after saying that he wanted longer matches. He is complaining that the matches are too long now, but they're only too long if Roman Reigns is in them. See the hypocriticalness of that. And there's too many Superman punches, too many spears. It's the same things that you would hear from anybody in the YWC. I think it's less that people are repeating his rhetoric. I think it's more that he is just like everybody else in the YWC. And that's what drives me crazy about guys like Meltzer, Magoo, and Wade Keller. You could take any goofball off the internet, swap them with those guys, and you pretty much get the same level of quality wrestling journalism. And people are going, "Oh no, these guys are experts." But no, no, no. Give them the same access. Give them the same connections in the business that they have, and it would yield the same results. There's still goofballs. There's still guys that are very out of touch, that are obsessed with fake fighting, and that's all they care about. And they have their deep affections for certain talent. See, the problem I have with this match is not that it was too long or that it was Roman Reigns. My problem I have here is the fact that Bray Wyatt lost clean here. This guy, and I've been saying it for weeks. I'm getting tired of hearing myself say it in videos, and I'm sure people are. But the same complaint has to be said. This guy was champion mere months ago at WrestleMania. That was just in April. The guy was champion, and he's already losing clean here. What about protecting talent? I don't have a problem with Roman Reigns. Of course, the people in the YWC are going to complain about Bray Wyatt losing, but for a different reason. They're going to say, oh, because Roman has to beat everybody. Well, it's not about that. It's Roman doesn't need a win here because he doesn't need to go over Bray clean here. What is the purpose besides having a match? Why did this need to happen? Bray should be looking strong, but people still make excuses for him. There's so many things that are said in the YWC. You lose track of what anybody even really truly thinks. They're going to say, oh, Bray Wyatt's character doesn't matter because he's so weird. He doesn't care about winning or losing. Well, the viewers do. If they look at a guy like Bray Wyatt constantly losing all the time, and that his championship reign was so pathetic, that he only held it for 1 month, this guy should have been champion within a year of being there. He obviously was way ahead of everybody else when it came to character, performance. He was as over as somebody could possibly be, as far over as someone could be with this level of low ratings. So they should have put the belt on him a long time ago. And like I said in my video, when it did happen at the Elimination Chamber, a little bit too little too late. And people said, oh, well, better late than ever. No, still a little bit too late. The timing was way off. People didn't even care anymore about this character. It was just pretty much the people who pretended to care. back in the day when somebody actually won a belt, and they strived for it, people would actually get excited. When Bray Wyatt won the title, it was like nobody even truly cared. Just a couple of people were pretending to be excited about it. There was nothing to get excited about it because it was a boring product when it happened, and it still is. Dean Ambrose interrupts Elias Sampson in this performance. I enjoy this character. Finally, a gimmick. Finally, a personality. Finally, somebody that stands out. But I gotta disagree with Jeff from Russo's brand, from Vince Russo's podcast. He said that this guy could be entertaining if they keep giving him lyrics week after week that piss off the crowd. Okay, that's good for a little bit of time, and that is his character. But they need to incorporate different aspects of the Drifter. It can't be the same shtick night after night with certain things just moved around, to make it seem fresh. After a while, it's going to get stale. You can't just have the same thing going on, him sitting down, playing the guitar, trying to get heat from the crowd. There comes a time when you got to stop doing cheap heat, dissing the town that you're in and start actually making the guy seem like a threat. Maybe he'll hit people with the guitar. Maybe he'll do different things. Try to come up with different aspects of this character, explore his psyche. Instead, it's always one dimensional. Let's just have him come out there. It's the same thing with Enzo and Cass. They think that they could just put them out there week after week doing the same shtick and it's going to pay off. So, yeah, they need to, expand beyond just having the little jam sessions in the middle of the ring. Then you had the big segment with Wade Keller with praising this to the high heavens with Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe, Fat Boy Joe, call him what you will, but this promo was boring and one dimensional. Everybody keeps raging against Russo, but he said it best. He's one dimensional as it gets. Joe just has the same face on through the whole promo. You got to move your face a little bit. You got to make some facial expressions, show some emotion for not only the people there, but the people at home. At least show a little bit that you care, a little bit of emotion. It's super serious all the time. You could be tough without having a super serious face on all the time, speaking in the same monotone voice. Can you imagine if guys like Stone Cold Steve Austin, if they, spoke in a monotone voice with the same facial expression? It's almost like he's scared for 1 minute. If he flinches his face, he won't be perceived as being tough. The thing is, he doesn't even come off as being that tough. He comes off as just being a boring, stone-faced guy. But meanwhile, you've got Wade Keller with the lotion in the tissues, completely infatuated with Samoa Joe, as he says that this is one of the best promos he's heard from Joe. That this is, the promo of a lifetime, as he writes, the promo of Joe's lifetime. I guess you could say that it's probably his biggest match. It's for a world title in WWE. That's not, a developmental title. It's not an NXT title. It's a Universal Championship held by Brock Lesnar. It's a semi-accurate statement, but completely overblowing it, like saying that this is the greatest thing that Joe has ever done. It was a boring, straightforward promo, a promo we have heard 1,000 times in TNA and NXT and in the Indies and Ring of Honor. He's constantly given this same promo. It's the same garbage that he did in Ring of Honor, telling people he was going to kill them. What a great promo to give in wrestling, threatening to kill somebody. And it wasn't just me. It was also, I remembered reading this in PWI, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, that Joe should not say that he's going to kill somebody, because people don't die in wrestling, so it's a little bit stupid to threaten somebody's life in a wrestling match. You know, no one's going to buy that from Fat Boy Joe. So why would you threaten somebody's life? You know, people say, "Oh, Brad, you're gonna take this too literally. That's just his little shtick he does." But the shtick is stupid, and it's the same thing. The ultra serious face, "I'm gonna kill you." It's dumb. At least he's not saying that. I'm sure Vince also doesn't want him to say that in the PG landscape. So Samoa Joe's promo here was boring. It was not the promo of a lifetime, Helen Keller, to use a line from Russo. It was not a sensational promo. So Heyman comes out. He says that Joe doesn't fear Lesnar, and the feeling is mutual. So Joe locks him in the coquina clutch. Not that that was bad or anything, but once again, I'm not feeling excited for this. You know, I'm not perceiving Joe as a tough guy. What I see going into this match, it's interesting for what it is, but I see a full blown superstar in a guy that looks like a Greek god in Brock Lesnar versus an indie fat boy, basically. This is like a huge superstar versus a guy that, well, he's been in the indies for a long time, and he just showed up because WWE is super desperate to please the internet. That's basically what I see here. I don't see a dream match, as people were saying. I don't see a match that's going to put asses in the seats. I don't see that at all, but people see that. So they're seeing through different eyes, I suppose. I guess when you put on your smart goggles, you see differently than anybody else with a normal functioning brain. So Cesaro and Sheamus, they squash Slater and Rhino. I agree with Wade Keller here. They deserve better. In fact, I'm going to go so far as to say that Rhino would have been a better replacement for Joe. First of all, Rhino is in better shape. Rhino is even wider than Joe. And Rhino has more of a presence than Joe. And probably Rhino's more popular than Joe, probably more well known than Joe. At least he was there when the ratings were higher. People probably remember Rhino more. And I would just say that there's a handful of people I'd pick over Fat Boy Joe. And Rhino would be one of them. These guys were entertaining when they were on SmackDown. I don't understand now why they're just, squash match fodder. Just they're treating them like lumps of shit all of a sudden. Now I like this team of Cesaro and Sheamus. I think that it's a good pairing together. They couldn't figure out what to do with these guys, but they mesh well as a team. Yes, it does seem like it's desperation that Cesaro looked like a guy that was going to go to the upper echelons, but they didn't want to commit to him. And Sheamus obviously is a former world champion, and they just don't have anything else to do with him at the moment. They can't think of anything. But for the time being, I am enjoying it. The Hardys are nowhere to be found, and also the same has to be said for Fuckboy Balor. Where are they? They're there at the pay-per-view last night, but I checked everywhere. I didn't see him. So it's funny how they just don't even write these guys off the show. They just don't appear. Major stars. They can't even commit to Balor. They can't even commit to the Hardys. They lose the titles and they don't show up the next night. The Retribution, are they injured? I don't know. No one tells me anything. I don't hear anything. They just don't show up. It's like they don't care. They don't feel like telling a story here. Here's the guys that they wrestled, but where are they? You don't see them. TJ Nerdkins, TJP, the stupid name. I can't. That's why I've said I'm not calling him TJP. I'm calling him by the name they should call him, TJ Nerdkins. Every time I see that face, Is that probably the least intimidating face? This guy is going to be a heel. Anyway, he beats Kama Mufasa from the Lion King, whatever the fuck his name is. How about that acting on the stage there when he got up there with Neville? We're going to talk to Kurt Angle right now. Just stop. I mean, this is a guy that definitely should not be promoted to any main roster. Shouldn't even be in developmental. This is like amateur hour here. The look, the way how he spoke to Neville. Now Neville, on the other hand, I'll never get how a guy like Fuckboy Balor got to where he is. Now Neville was there before Balor. Neville looks more like a star, especially when they turned him heel and they changed his look up a bit. Also, the physique is 10 times better than that of Balor's. Neville has the bodybuilder look. He's just smaller. He might be like the same height as Balor. But this guy looks like he could be in the world title picture, especially when you base it off of who's currently there. So why is Neville holding on to the cruiserweight title? I mean, why is he? It's a good thing he's holding on to the belt. I mean, obviously he looks 10 times tougher than anybody else in that division. But why is he in that division? Shouldn't it be the other way around? Shouldn't Balor be in the cruiserweight division and Neville should be in the world title picture? Who decides these things of who should be where? Seriously, if you're gonna have a guy like, why are guys like Aries and Neville looking the way they do, but they're relegated to the position of mere cruiserweights? Why a guy like Balor, a guy who's not even 200 pounds, is wrestling for a heavyweight championship? This is like mind blowing. It's like I said, something is off balance here. Who's ever making these decisions in creative is, I don't know. They're thinking with half a brain, with a portion of a brain, with 1%. How is this even possible to be presented in this way? Goldust cuts a promo. He's back in the director's chair. Um, you know, the way he's turned around, making him like a director. This is all good, but we saw the same promo last week. Are they going to keep doing this to lead up to the match that they're going to have? They're just going to have these two guys, him and R-Truth, in director's chairs. And I feel like no one's really interested in this feud. Nobody cared about the team. It's good to see Goldust kind of getting a little bit of his mojo back, so to speak. But, after this feud ends, what's next for Goldust? Are they going to put him in there with, for the IC belt? What are we going to see? A Miz Goldust match? What are the plans after this? I can't really see anything for Goldust beyond this point. And this is me just taking a guess based on how they've done things in the past. They're going to try to drag this out as much as possible with him because it's quite obvious. Ever since the whole Cody tag team, they had no idea what to do with this guy. Like I said, they fucked him up. They could have had a massive storyline with him and Cody. If they did it the way how Goldust wanted it done, it could have been a beautiful, memorable match and feud. But McMahon didn't want to do it. So, that's now, impossible. Dusty's not alive anymore. There was a lot of plans for that. But they waited way too long to do anything, like I said, and then they went with the Stardust Goldust match instead. Kurt Angle comes out, he pulls Graves to the side. They said, "Oh, this is weird. What is this about?" Last week, they didn't want to say something is threatening Angle's career. There's a text message. It's a repeat from last week. Okay, you teased it last week. Now we should get a little bit of an info, at least maybe a couple of hints as to what this is about. But once again, nope. We're just gonna simply just play with the audience again. I mean, this is annoying to say the very least. I mean, you're telling a story here. You want to tell a story, tell a story, but you can't just present something and then in 2 weeks in a row and not tell anybody else what's going on. Trust us. Trust me. It's not that intriguing. That we're gonna keep coming back, especially when the rest of the product is trash. They've got two mysteries going on with Enzo and Cass. Is it intertwined? I don't know, but it's just odd that we're not really getting any answers. They're just repeating things week after week. Kalisto defeated Titus O'Neil, and something like I said is very wrong here with this. Kalisto going over Titus. So, what is the story over here? So, you've got this other guy, Makeo Tazami, whatever the hell his name is, some Japanese guy. If you ask the YWC, they'll tell you he's great because he's Japanese or whatever. But anyway, he tells him to. Michael Cole actually tells us that Titus O'Neil told him to watch the match. Well, I didn't hear Titus say that, but Michael Cole said it, so there you go. There's the explanation. So you have Apollo Crews at ringside. He's watching the match, and Kalisto grabs the tights and gets the win. Over a guy like Titus O'Neil, a guy who's 6'6", 6'7", looking the way that Titus does. So what is the thing here? I thought this is the Titus brand. Titus wants, Apollo Crews to be more like him. So if he's always losing all the time and being a goofball, why would Crews hang around him? Why would Crews get advice from Titus O'Neil if he's a loser? Is that the irony here? Are we supposed to laugh? I mean, we really, that's the joke here. Like it's not funny. It's a poor attempt at humor, much like every single time they try to do some type of attempt at humor. It's ironic. Oh, he's supposed to be teaching Apollo Crews to be a winner, but he's a loser. But that also makes Apollo Crews look like a fucking moron. Because why would he take advice from a guy that loses all the time? Look at the writing here. It's like they can't figure their shit out just by looking at it. Does anybody proofread this before they present it? Big Cass is attacked backstage, so Enzo needs to find a new partner. I don't know what's going on here. The Revival wasn't even mentioned. Weren't they suspects? Now all of a sudden, I guess they're not suspects anymore. Now I see people writing on YouTube that Big Cass might have attacked Enzo and he attacked himself to make this, to take the heat off of him. What? It's so sad that they need to even say that Cass attacked himself because there's not enough people on the roster to be likely suspects. When you had Stone Cold getting hit by the car years ago, you had a whole list of suspects, which made it interesting because it really could have been anybody. People had different motives, and they put a lot of intrigue into the storyline, even if you weren't happy with Rikishi being the one who mowed him down. I gotta say, this is not the same thing like Stone Cold being hit, So what is the thing? They've got a mystery with Angle. They've got a mystery with Enzo and Cass. What is this sudden infatuation with mysteries and people getting attacked and mysterious text messages? Well, what's gotten into them? Are they, like I said, are they connected in some way? But there's not enough intrigue here. If you want to have an intriguing mystery, add some intrigue into it. You're proposing the base idea, but you're not really giving enough to the audience to really, like, do these people even know? Do they watch TV other than wrestling? Do they realize that if you're going to write a mystery, that you got to give a little bit more intrigue into it. Like I don't think they know how to write TV. They don't watch any other shows. This is like amateur hour. Uh, anyway, the Miz has a celebration for for him winning the Intercontinental title. He's paranoid. He thinks the dancing bear is Dean Ambrose. He attacks the bear. It's not Ambrose. He starts busting up a gift box that Maurice presents to him, but it's just a grandfather clock. Maurice gets upset, and walks out on him. Dean Ambrose is actually the cameraman. He sneaks up from behind him and he gives him the dirty deeds. Is this like every week with Ambrose? He just keeps DDTing people, coming up from behind him. It's like, I'll give them this. They did write a segment. They tried to be creative with the celebration and Miz being paranoid. But it's like, where are they going to go with this? The belt goes back and forth. Ambrose is the champ. Then Miz is the champ. I mean, how many times are these guys going to trade the belt back and forth? Miz has been champion like 15 times. He was a world champion. Just the same thing like Dean Ambrose. I see two guys that are former world champions that they have no idea what to do with. So they just keep going around in circles. Ambrose is doing the same shit week after week. He's just doing goofy stuff and sneak attacks, but the guy never moves forward with his career. They never, and it's not his fault. I mean, obviously, the guy's just doing what he's instructed to do. But these guys are set up to fail. I mean, they're just booked into a gigantic circle. The whole entire year is probably going to be like this with Ambrose just, going, defending the title, winning the title. Nothing ever creative or interesting or intriguing. Like I said, there's no twists and turns. It's just real basic shit. A paranoid Miz, they could have a little bit more fun with that. Like, you have the base of an idea. You could have Miz being the paranoid champion. But instead, they're just going to go with the sneak attack to wrap things up. They're not going to build off of that. Very lazy writing. They do have ideas. You do see sometimes where there could be some creative, you see the creative input, but I don't know what it is. It never is fully realized. And this is always a constant in WWE. You see ideas formulate, but then combust in almost the same breath. So Enzo finds his tag partner. It's Big Show. So, Show just shows up whenever he feels like it, I guess. It's, 1 week he breaks the ring with Braun Strowman, and then you don't see him for like a whole month, and then he just shows up when someone needs a tag partner. And they beat Gallows and Anderson. Once again, I'm sorry, but I need to speak to my YWC fanboys out there. Again, you're the guys that were going to come in and save the WWE. You know that there's creative. You know that there's McMahon who does not watch Japanese wrestling. You still say that these guys are going to save the day. They're going to come in because they're from Japan, and if anybody wrestled in Japan, they're automatically great. So, if they're Japanese or they wrestled in Japan, if they have to do, if they're associated anyway with Japan or New Japan Pro Wrestling. See, this is the thing. Because these people, they read the Meltzer Magoo's column. They watch his videos on YouTube. They hear his commentary. Basically, you fanboys want to turn WWE into New Japan. And why would you want to do that in the first place? There's already a New Japan. If you like New Japan, then watch New Japan. Why would you want WWE to become New Japan Pro Wrestling? Japan is a different place where people will sit in the audience and applaud the wrestlers. Nobody wants that style of wrestling here. This is America. It's not the same style. Here we have shows like Walking Dead, Law and Order. We have, different types of shows with levels of intrigue. You know, you've got Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, to name a couple of shows. You know, shows that are, you have shows that explore so many different angles of society and different personalities. And instead, they rather go with this same old bullshit, you know, of just pleasing internet fans. Internet wrestling fans, where all they want to see is just men in tights kicking each other stiffly. This is all that fans want to see. They don't want characters. If they see a character, they're like, "Oh, this is goofy." They don't want to see personalities. They don't want to see storylines. I mean, this, because they're catering to an audience that all they do all day long is simply watch wrestling on, and they watch Japan. They watch New Japan Pro Wrestling. Doesn't even matter if it's in English or not. The people are gonna watch it because they're like, "Oh, that's the great wrestling right there." Well, that is your opinion. If you like New Japan, good, watch it, but stop trying to ruin it for everybody else by trying to transform this promotion into New Japan. And the same goes for Meltzer Magoo. This is WWE. It's never been about trying to, you know, what is their name? You know, trying to be New Japan Wrestling Entertainment. No, it's not. It's based in America last time I checked, Stamford, Connecticut. So why would they want to cater to a Japanese audience when they're in America? And when they go to Japan, people don't want to see the Japanese style of wrestling. They want the WWE style. As evidenced by when they go there, it's popular and people want to see it. Because I don't think that Japanese wrestling is as big as everybody claims it to be. And like I said, if Meltzer Magoo loves New Japan so much, then move to Japan. If you want that style of wrestling, that's all you live for. Go sleep in the Tokyo Dome parking lot, you Mama Luke, if that's all you want. That's all you want, is just all Japanese guys all the time. Well, Brock wrestled in Japan. So did Goldberg. Even you know, Prince Albert, A-Train wrestled in Japan. They all wrestled in Japan. All these wrestlers, one time or another, have been in Japan. So it doesn't matter if you've been there or you haven't been there. It doesn't matter. You don't get some medal of honor, or you're not considered to be one of the best because you simply wrestle in Japan. So enough with this Bullet Club thing. Can we put it to rest already that these guys are overrated? They weren't as great as what they were said to be by all these moronic internet fans, just like everybody else. Because at the end of the day, let's just see through it. If a wrestler is in Japan, they come to WWE, these people and Meltzer Magoo are automatically going to say that they're great because they're fanboys of New Japan, and that's all they care about. R-Truth cuts a promo on Goldust. Yes, yes, yes. It's the same thing as last week. Nia Jax defeated Alexa Bliss by disqualification. So they didn't even show this on YouTube, but earlier in the night, Alexa Bliss proposed to Kurt Angle that maybe they should do an Alexa Bliss "This Is Your Life." Angle said that last week that was one of the worst segments in the history of Raw. And once again, I have to say, I knew that they were going to do this. They're going to put the blame on Alexa Bliss for this segment because that's how stupid they are. It's not creative's fault. It's not McMahon or Stephanie for green lighting that terrible segment last week. Let's get something perfectly straight. And I even said a Bliss tried her hardest last week to take that shit and and tried to make it as good as she could possibly do, taking chicken shit and making it into chicken salad. It was it was an impossible task. She was never going to make that segment great because it was terrible material to begin with. But she tried her hardest, and it really showed the expertise of Alexa Bliss that Despite horrible material, she could at least, try. Just think if anybody else was in that position, the segment would have been even worse if you could even believe that. So, the thing is, but you don't acknowledge that the segment was bad. I've said this time and time again when announcers do it, and they've had other talent say it. When you have a slip up or something goes wrong, you make excuses for it. That's what you do. Like when somebody would botch the top rope, you would have Matt Striker or somebody else say, "Oh well, there's the wrestlers are sweating on, so the ropes are going to be more slippery." You try to get out of it. Or if you have a bad segment, you never mention it again. You just you hope fans forget and you move on, but instead they're like actually making fun of themselves and being self-deprecating, but blaming the talent involved, which is so low class. And you'd say, "Oh, but Brad, the thing is fake anyway." Yeah, but you could tell by actually having the authority figure confront Bliss and blaming her, the audience is going to be like, "Well, yeah, Bliss was to blame for all that." When really, in actuality, it's the creative team and McMahon that should be blamed for this, like I said, this terrible segment being greenlit in the first place. So I did like at the end of this match, you had, Bliss had the maniacal look on her face. She purposely got herself disqualified. And, Nia Jax, they should be doing way more with this girl. She's like been forgotten about, basically. And the whole Bailey storyline, she's been pushed to the side when she's like a monster. This could be like their Awesome Kong. They missed out on Awesome Kong. This is like the second coming of her. But, they've kind of been lazy with handling her. Once again, they have no idea what to do with Nia Jax. Just like they have no idea to do with anybody on the roster. And in the main event, it was Samoa Joe defeating Seth Rollins when the lights went out for Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt wasn't there, but the lights went out. So, there you go. There's your feud. Next feud will be Rollins and Bray. So, okay. So once again, you have, Joe beating Rollins not being protected, just having a pointless match just for the hell of it. And there you go. Fat Boy Joe winning another match, seesawing it because, Rollins won a couple of times against Joe. So now Joe's got to win. Like I said, they have no idea how to protect anybody. You got guys losing, Bray Wyatt losing clean in an opening match. Fat Boy Joe is getting praised by Helen Keller. All these stupid, moronic wrestling journalists putting this shit over. They start attacking the show because it's not enough like New Japan, but then they start praising it. So what is their stance here? They want to say that, WWE's merchandise sales are up. And then they want to say, they're unhappy with other aspects of the company. But which one is it? It's just a bunch. That's what I'm saying. They're just like the YWC. They're a bunch of fanboys. They don't like Roman Reigns, but they like their indie talent. And they're going to put WWE over because that indie talent is currently there. And they don't want to admit that the ratings are bad. But then you have another week where Meltzer Magoo says that the ratings are down and that the indies are prospering. Does any, I have to ask the people out there, because there was people who was defending Meltzer Magoo when I did my video on him. How do you defend that? When Meltzer Magoo is saying that WWE is better than it was during the Attitude Era, Keller's been saying the same thing. And then on a whole different week, they take everything back they said, and they said, "Oh no, the ratings are down and the indies are actually doing better." The indies are not on TV. So how the hell could they possibly be doing better? Like, just to give people a for instance, when I used to go to Ring of Honor, I mentioned this in the past, Lake Grove, Long Island. Basically, it was a convention center that was, the top floor on an amusement center. If anybody remembers Discovery Zone or Fun Time USA, it was exactly like that little arcade, little amusement center for the family. And they had a little convention center up there that sat like 200 people or something like that. That's the indies being on the rise. They're still performing in high school gymnasiums. How can the indies be on the rise? How can they be prospering? They don't have a TV deal. They don't have big merchandise sales. So what are they talking about exactly? Where does Meltzer Magoo get his information from that he can make these claims? But next week he's going to say that WWE is the best it's ever been. I mean, at what point do people unsubscribe from this Mama Luke's $10.99 a month newsletter? It's garbage. All he does is just lie and make shit up, and a bunch of idiots in the YWC and the IWC believe him. It's like the Word of God. It's like the Bible, the Wrestling Observer newsletter. It's a complete fraudulent newsletter, and the same thing with PW Torch. What a fucking rag! You read this Raw report from Wade Keller. He's supposed to be an expert, and he is putting over a boring, monotone promo. How the hell do you justify that opinion? You're watching something that is obviously boring as fuck, and you're putting it over like it's one of the best things you've ever seen. What a liar. This is a man that sat there and watched The Rock, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, and The Ultimate Warrior give promos. And he's really going to sit there and type out that was a great promo. What a fraud. What a liar. Just appealing to the internet audience that he has. The only people that will give any validity to these Mamalukes. Anyway, guys, there is your Raw review. Until next time, motherfuckers.